What's up, guys? This is Jesse DeRozier with Hydrilla Gorilla Guide Service here on Lake Guntersville. Today's date is October the 8th, 2025, and this is What's on the Deck. So this past week, we've continued to see water temps just slowly continuing to creep down. I've been off the water for the most part for the last couple of weeks due to, I did have wrist surgery. I had a ganglion cyst removed, and I do plan on being off the water for the majority of this coming week, at least up until Monday, due to the fact that we have the Ultimate Angler World Championship here as well as the Big Bass Tour. And so not to be out there and be impeding in competing with these guys for fish, I've opted to take the week off and kind of let my wrist, heal up some more before going back to work. So I'll be back at it come Monday. So next week I will have some information as well going into the following weekend. That said, instead this week I am going to do, instead of a what's on the deck, what should be on the deck. So I'm going to basically go over with you, if I were fishing the Ultimate Angler World Championship or the Big Bass Tour, obviously your thought process should be big fish, not numbers of fish or even quality fish, but actually your biggest class fish that you can catch. So this week we're going to focus on that and what baits that I would be looking at throwing to see, whether or not I could put together, some big bags for these tournaments. Now that said, let's go ahead and get started. The first bait that I would say that's probably going to see the vast majority of use this week is probably one of two presentations. And the first one to me is going to be a hollow belly frog. A SPRO frog is definitely a dynamite way to go anytime you're fishing in the fall time. If you're fishing a grass lake and it is fall and you don't have a frog, in the boat or on the deck, you're definitely selling yourself short. Second to that, or should say second bait, but not second to that, is going to be that of punching. Punching the grass mats in the fall time can yield some really, really big fish. And I'd say that's probably a good option as to how, the Ultimate Angler World Championship will probably be won, will be by somebody utilizing either one or both of these two techniques. Now that said, if you're one of the guys fishing the Big Bass Tour, there's going to be a lot of boats between these two tournaments. I've heard rumor of another big tournament possibly being out there as well. I don't know whether there's any validity in that, so I don't want to mention too much about that. But just between those two tournaments, we're probably looking at 950 boats to 1,000 boats being out on the water for the majority of this week, not counting Saturday if that other tournament shows up. So that being the case, there's going to be a lot of boats in close proximity. There's going to be a lot of water that's getting worked over and over and over again. So if you're one of the guys who are going out and you're frogging and punching, there's not a ton of grass this year. Just FYI, if you've not been here, you're not from around here, and you're coming down for the Big Bass Tour, if you've not been able to get out there and pre-fish, I'm going to go ahead and tell you there's not probably half the grass of what there usually is. Basically from like Goose Pond going north all the way up to like Crow Creek, you're going to have your standard grass. If you get below that and you're going down the lake, you're probably going to make it all the way down to 431, where there's no grass between those two areas, or very, very little. I can't say none. There's always a little bit along the edges and whatnot, but no big mats. There's some river channel grass out there and stuff like that, but it's just not the same as what it usually is. Not until you get down to, say, All Reds, Browns Creek, and Honeycomb do you find some mats again. And even there, they're not in huge quantities. There is some grass there, but all of this grass is definitely going to take a beating this week. That being the case, I wanted to give you guys some alternate patterns to be able to put into use, to be able to still draw some of these bigger bites. And if you had a chance to look at the EQs this week that actually went on, or last week that went on over on Wheeler, we had a very, very tight race between Matt Adams and Laker Howell. And congrats to both of those guys on dynamite finish. I mean, it was definitely as tight as it can possibly get. It was won by 2 ounces. So very, very tight race there. And love to see these guys bringing it home for Guntersville. So that being the case, let's go ahead and get into kind of what Laker was doing. Laker was throwing a big topwater walking bait. And he did this all day. And, you know, he was looking for 6 to 8 bites. And he was looking for those big bites. And it paid off for him. So this is a dynamite option. You don't have to be frogging and punching, you know, just because everybody else has got that mindset. This is definitely a winning pattern that can get you out there and be able to get on some of those big fish. Here, I'm going to be probably taking that and throwing it on long tapering points, main lake ledges, outside grass lines, and even sometimes inside grass lines. The inside grass lines will probably get you more numbers of fish, but probably not necessarily as big a fish. There I would probably be looking at probably more out a little bit deeper. That being said, there you're going to get into, you know, what kind of options as far as colors. So here I've got some evergreen shower blows. So again, bone is always a great option. We've got some areas of the lake that have some stained water to them. And in those kind of a semi-stained water condition, this is definitely going to be my go-to. Or kind of a cloudy day. If I've got high bluebird skies and very, very little ripple on the water, I'm going to be throwing something more in the chrome pattern. And if I'm in gin clear water and no ripple on the water, I'm probably going to be looking at throwing something that's more translucent. I don't want them to get a great look at it. So by going more translucent, they're not going to be able to focus in as clearly on, you know, the profile of that bait. So that will help a little bit in drawing some strikes there. Next, anytime I'm fall fishing, I don't care if I'm on Guntersville or the Coosa River, or wherever I'm at, you cannot be fall fishing without a buzzbait. Here, I'm going to throw one of 2 colors. I'm going to be throwing a white and a black. And everybody kind of has their preference on how they do this. Some guys are black early in the morning and late in the evening, and then, you know, the white when the sun's high. And then you've got others with the exact opposite mentality who are like, well, they're feeding on shad late in the evenings, they're blowing up and schooling in the evening, so I'm going to throw something that's shad profile early morning, late evening. And then when the sun's up, I just want a bait that's silhouetting because I'm going to be throwing fairly close to, you know, the grass mats and things like that. So I just want a dark silhouette, and they'll throw the black. I've seen success throwing it myself both ways. So I would say keep them both on the deck and keep them both honest, because you never know. One day, one may prevail, and the next day, the next color prevails. So there, I'm not necessarily a hard, fast rule on what I'm going to be doing. The next set of baits is going to be moving baits. If we get some windy conditions, it is hard to beat a chatterbait on a grass lake. Lake Guntersville is known for being a chatterbait lake. This is a full-size chatterbait. It has got a 4.8 spunk shad on as a trailer, and it's a 1/2 ounce head. So that's your standard size. Now, again, we're looking for fewer bites but bigger fish. I will even step it up and throw, this is a 1/2 ounce, that it's a homemade one. 1/2 ounce with a 6-inch pintail shad from Producer Swimbaits as the trailer, which is going to give that larger profile, more along the lines of a gizzard shad or a golden shiner. And that's the colors of this one that's kind of tied up to imitate more so as the golden shiner. It's a bait fish that, you know, a lot of people ignore here on the lake. They always think about Guntersville having threadfin and gizzards, and that's kind of what they go with. And so going with something like a golden shiner that's a little bit more kind of left alone, to me, I can get some really big bites on that. It's just something that they don't see that often. But, I mean, you can't ever go wrong with something that's going to look like, you know, either a large threadfin or a gizzard shad. Again, sticking with the same concepts, kind of the same areas that I'm going to be throwing that. But if I've got say a little bit less wind, or with the amount of pressure that we're going to have on the lake, I may feel that I need to make the adjustment and drop off the blade, and there I'm just going to go with a standard swim jig. So that is a 3/4 ounce swim jig, and it's got the skinny dipper as the trailer. And again, here I'm looking to imitate that large bait profile. Not going to be going out there and throwing something small. Small, yes, I'm going to get a ton of bites, and I will catch some quality fish. But if you're looking for very few bites and big bites at that, big bait is going to be the way to go. Don't be afraid of it, guys. These fish are not afraid of eating an 8 and 10 inch gizzard shad. And that being the case, that little 6-inch bait is nothing for them. So there I'm going to be focusing on outside grass lines, river channel ledges, humps, long tapering points, road beds, anything like that that is going to be areas where these fish are setting up to ambush. The bigger fish also will be willing to eat really big baits if you're willing to throw them. It takes a lot of time and dedication. But one of the best baits that you can be throwing right now, especially in, say, the Big Bass Tour, is going to be something like this, an 8-inch glide bait. If you've never done it, it'd be a hard thing to go out there and do. But if you know the power of what this bait can do, this is the Bull Shad's Trick Shad, and it's a composite version, and it is the 8-inch. It will absolutely draw some dynamite strikes. And if you're looking to win a boat this week, that might be the way to go. Again, it's not going to yield you a ton of bites, but it's going to get you the right type of bites of what you're looking for. Next is also a bull shad bait, but it is the bull wake. Now the bull wake has a plastic bill on it. It floats, and this bait is the exact size of the majority of the gizzard shad that are up there running around right now that these fish are feeding on. The grass flats, if you get up there and say you're roaming around in 3-4 foot of water, you'll see groups of 5 or 6 foot around little schools of gizzards that'll come by. You'll see the little threadfin too, and those are really small, tiny bait fish. But you're going to see groups of the gizzards as well. And if these fish are, bigger class fish and they're looking to fatten up for winter, they don't want to be chasing those little bitty minnows. So throwing a smaller bait right now, it's going to get you bites, but it's not going to get you that class fish. So you need to be looking at throwing something more like the size of that bull wake. As I mentioned, that is the about exact size of what I've been seeing out there on the lake in the last couple of weeks running around. Now, the next bait is actually going to be a 7-inch Super Fluke. This bait right now is definitely producing some great numbers as well as quality bites. If you're throwing the standard size, we've been throwing them on a double fluke rig, so a donkey rig, if you guys know what is that. Tying 2 baits up and twitching it, and it looks like they're crisscrossing, kind of chasing each other, and it definitely kind of gets that cat and mouse type mentality going in these fish and gets them really kind of geared up to chase. So if you tie up the 7-inch and you rig it up like that, it's got enough weight you can throw it on a bait caster and work it like you would a standard jerk bait and be able to draw these fish in doing that. That's another great option, to be able to throw that up and around, topped out edges of grass, these big clumps of sago out on a river, or anywhere that you've got to be worrying about throwing something that has treble hooks. So that would be the next setup that I would be looking at throwing as well. The big bass, the ultimate angler guys are not able to use forward-facing sonar this week. So you're not going to have any of them out there, live scoping or using active target or Mega Live 2, or even 360 for that matter. So this water is definitely opened up for all of you guys during the Big Bass Tour. And if you're scopers, these fish, these big ones, are big solitary fish. They like to get out there and kind of roam around, and nothing can beat, getting out there with something and getting it right above their head. So getting something like the Mega Bass Vision 110 plus 2 or the plus 1, and getting out there, figuring out exactly how deep these fish are, how, you know, they're set up and suspended, and getting that bait right above them, and just, again, kind of working it cat and mouse and teasing these fish into biting. Last but not least is going to be absolutely going with a soft tail bait on a jig head, so a jig head minnow. I'm going to go one of two ways. Again, I'm going to go with a large profile. So the Producer Swimbaits has the pintail shad. It's a 6-inch version. I'm going to pair it on the Ducket sway head, and I'm going to make sure that I've got that glued, guys. That's one of the things that I would highly recommend. Go ahead and pull that out, especially this week, because I'm sure the bait racks are probably sold out pretty bad. And to be able to make your baits last, I would highly recommend picking up a bottle of the Avid Angler's fishing glue, putting that on there, and gluing that head on there. You can see that glue up and around the neck of that. What that does is it allows for that to stay in place. I can catch, you know, 10, 15, 20 fish off that one bait without it tearing up. Whereas if I don't, I'm probably going to be looking at 2. The next bait is a Sakamata shad. And again, going to be using that Ducket sway head, gluing it on there with Avid Angler's glue. And this is actually an 8-inch bait. A lot of people are throwing the 7-inch right now. If I'm going for broke, I'm going big, boys. I'm either going big or going home. And I would not be afraid to be throwing that 8-inch right now. And the one thing that I would highly recommend is any of these baits, hard baits, soft baits, I don't care what they are. Even punching is going to be taking some Thump Gel, adding it to your bait. What that's going to do, especially like punching, it's going to put an oily residue on there. It's going to help it slide through the grass. Once they get it in their mouth, they got that big weight in there, but they're able to get that scent off of that Thump Gel. It's going to keep it in their mouth a lot longer and give you time to set up on them. But that goes for any of these baits. Especially, I've seen it with live scoping, that they'll get up behind your bait if you don't have it on there, and they'll tail it and trail it, and then get back to the boat, and they turn off and go away. And that's a lost cast and a lost fish. By adding that, I've seen those fish literally get up behind it, and it's like when they get in that scent trail, all of a sudden it's like boom, the trigger mechanism kicks in, and they shoot up there and they engulf the bait. So it does make a difference in how many of these big fish you can actually get to commit rather than just be followers. But as I mentioned, I will be back at it Monday after all these tournaments have kind of finished up, and we'll be getting back to work. But I wanted to give you guys some information, at least to try to help you out for this week. I know that there's a lot of guys who've made big drives to get here to fish these tournaments. They've got a lot invested, and, you know, hopefully they can see some return of their investment. So hopefully this information helps you guys out this week. And until next week, guys, tight lines and have a good evening.